right, last night at the Greenville City Council, there were some interesting things discussed. The idea of a new bond referendum has been discussed here in recent weeks to potentially do something about street construction. And in addition to that, last night a motion was made and passed for the city manager to include a 1 cent per thousand tax increase also for maintenance in the city. Here to talk about all of that is the mayor of Greenville, the Honorable Alan Thomas. Good morning, Honorable Thomas. How are you?
Good morning, Honorable Hinton.
You doing all right? You doing good?
I'm doing good, and this was a short meeting. We only were there for 2.5 hours, so that's about half our pace. So that's some efficiencies there.
Yeah. And by the way, the mayor says he will take calls if you got something you want to ask the mayor this morning. 561-8255, 561-TALK, 561-8255. If you got a question about this, you know what people, when you say tax increase, everybody's ears perk up. And immediately the people start to get concerned. There hasn't been a tax increase in a while in Greenville. So now you got a new city council, a new makeup, and all of a sudden, we're talking tax increase. What's your perspective on that?
Well, it is a new council. You always have new themes every 2 years, and we do have elections every 2 years, so that creates the potential for turnover. It also creates potential where there's a learning curve when you have several new members, and that's been a process we've been going through the first part of this year. But to be honest, 2 years ago, we kind of went through a transition. If you remember, we had a new mayor and a new council member at large, and we kind of forged ahead pretty quickly with economic development and trying to tighten the budget and trying to be more efficient. And you have to deal with the times as they are currently. You can't deal in abstract, and in abstract, I think you'd always like to do pay increases for your employees, if you can, with matching CPI as the economy's growing. You'd also like to match the growth in your city. If let's face it, if 10,000 more people move here, then there's 10,000 people worth of more costs and services that we have to try to cover or stretch our bounds. So we're dealing with that right now, and some council members have some different ideas, and some were some surprises, quite honestly, that came up last night.
What was the surprise?
Well, a tax increase proposal was a surprise. It was not.
You had not been consulted about that?
No, that was. I actually had called every council member or text every council member this week and asked, was there anything that you want to cover and talk about that may be coming up on our agenda on Monday?
I know yesterday when I called you to set this interview up, you didn't say anything about a tax increase, and then came up in the meeting last night.
Well, let's be clear. The mayor only votes to break ties.
So you did not vote last night?
I can't vote, but I did vote last month, and we had the opportunity related to tax increase, and I made that pretty clear. 2 years ago, we had a shortfall of property tax, significant. The first time that we've been hit with that since the Great Depression. And our approach, it was recommended by staff to raise taxes by 2 to 4 pennies, which is significant. And we felt with the financial constraints on our citizens and the cost of everyday life that we felt we'd rather tighten our belt a little bit 2 years ago. Fast forward to today. Are things better? They are better. Are they significantly better? That would be debatable, especially for our citizens. So now there's a new approach. Also, we had a council member who could not make the meeting last night. Our third meetings are sometimes optional, and Councilmember Smith had a business engagement in Utah, unfortunately, and a tax increase was not on our agenda, nor was even the discussion of the budget. This was supposed to be strictly a discussion about the bonds and for the public and for us to learn the details that staff had compiled. So the fact that that was added to the agenda and then a tax increase vote was a little surprising to me. And,
are you opposed to it? Do you think it's unnecessary to have a tax increase?
Well, now the fact that it came up last night, I think is something that I need to absorb in terms of the context of these bonds. Now, the bond approach was that we have a number of neglected areas in the city, namely our roads, which is really my focus. Because look, economic development and infrastructure are hand in hand. If you ride through Cary, ride through some of the cities across North Carolina that when companies show up, they're excited about coming there. If your infrastructure is crumbling, you have a very short future. We're trying to plan here in Greenville for the 100,000 person population. And for 2020, when this thing is growing, we're trying to be ahead of that. But we've got some challenges here. An increase was not on my agenda and was not part of our plans. I think, if anything, The danger now, and I'm just trying to be open-minded, is that it could actually damage our bond effort. But we'll have to see how the public takes that. Number one, we had a couple of major areas which we talked about, street improvements, and some folks wanted to add rec and park and facilities improvement, and we were going to let the public weigh in on this. We thought that was very important. But now, as someone sent me a message this morning, they said we've got to maybe have taken that out of the public's hands by looking to just go ahead and do an increase, but we'll have to see.
It is an interesting strategy. I know that you and other council members, you talked to me about it about a week ago. I know I know that there have been other council members who've been talking to people around town, getting their opinion of the idea that what we really need is a bond referendum to raise some money to do street repair and other needed things in the city. But then out of the blue, you got a motion for a tax increase. And, you have to wonder if the community is going to respond to both, well, wait a minute, you're raising my taxes, and now you're asking my taxes to be raised again with a bond referendum.
Right. But we can't let that dominate the debate and the discussion. First of all, we have to focus on, what we need to get done. If you've got a house and your roof is leaking and your foundation is slumping and you're sitting there counting dollars in your bank account, you're trading a dollar of maintenance now for maybe millions later on if you don't go ahead and deal with your issues. That is the issue. And we have a full council. There's 7 folks that sit up there. My main focus is roads and infrastructure. Now, other council members have added rec and park and facilities improvement. We have a South Greenville gym, which has to be done, or that could be condemned within a short period, which could be a problem for the school system as well as the city. And we service a lot of youth. And trust me, that facility is very well used. South Greenville, the city owns that facility, but it is shared from a utility standpoint with the school system. And we need the school board and the county to step up on this, and we feel they will. Thousands of kids. Troy Smith did a wonderful job. Groves graduate and just an absolute saint who's now moving on to Raleigh, take another job. And think of the thousands of kids they've changed lives there. That if you don't get to them early, you lose a lot of them, and that ends up being an issue for Greenville going forward.
Again, if you got a question for the mayor, Mayor Alan Thomas in the studio with us, 561-8255, 561-8255. The question about a bond referendum, there's been some talk. I've heard it. You've already heard it, saying that, the council just made the decision to build a parking deck. It's going to cost, at the time, it looked like it was going to be $4 million. Price is already up to about $5 million to build a parking deck in downtown Greenville. Add to that the needs with the other city needs, including, as you put it, crumbling infrastructure. Give us the case. Let's forget this. We'll come back to the tax increase and why that was passed last night. But give us the case for why Greenville actually needs a bond referendum to take care of infrastructure. You talked about some of the things, but the main thing is streets, right?
For me, it is. And if you look at the bond, that's about half of the total of the bond would be street improvements. And also the 10th Street connector. We have a financial obligation to the state of North Carolina to improve that corridor with sidewalks and components of that connector, which we all are ecstatic about. It's years overdue, connects our medical campus to our main university campus. That will be a game changer. And as you know, I've already proposed that we look at that as naming that as Leo Jenkins Way, which we're looking at right now. Talking with DOT.
Thank you, by the way, for that.
Well, I mean, I think it's the least we could do for the legacy of Dr. Jenkins. And in a couple of years, I say this often, you know that, when you come back to Greenville, I think people are going to be blown away with our progress uptown, which is the front porch of our community, and our connectivity, hopefully. And I don't want them equally to be blown away with the crumbling roads and infrastructure around the rest of our city. We're trying to recruit and do economic development here. Now is the time. If we don't do it now, it could be 4, 5, 6 years before we get a chance to do this again.
561-8255, 561-8255. You got a question for Mayor Alan Thomas. And first up, Terry. You got something else?
I do have one more thing. Terry, hang on one second. The timing of this is key as well. The first thing I asked Bernita with our finance department to look at in terms of our indebtedness, where we stand, and we're at around 11 or 12% indebtedness, which is the lowest the city of Greenville has been in decades. And also, these are the lowest rates we may see in our lifetime. So in terms of an opportunity to grow our community, that's there.
All right, let's go to the phones. Terry, you're on the air with Mayor Thomas. Good morning.
Yeah, how you doing, Henry?
Fine.
My question to the mayor, I'm a little bit disappointed in the fact that city management has foot dragged as it relates to getting these roads done. I know that a couple of years ago, Max, yourself, and others put $4 million aside to get these roads done, and quite frankly, I haven't seen a lot of blacktop. And I'm very concerned about the roads, much more so than the parks at this particular time. So my question to you is, why don't you isolate the bond just to the road situation, put out a bond for $10 million or something in that vicinity, and let's get this pavement on these roads. I mean, even as far as out here in Brook Valley, York Road has been beat up so bad that it's just not real impressive to people coming to visit us. So, I mean, and this is occurring all over town.
Great point. Great point, Terry. Let's let the mayor answer that. And Terry's got a good point. The last bond that was passed in 2004, the criticism was we were told it was for stormwater and roads and some other things that we needed, but as time went on, we found out that money was spent in other ways. And so I think the taxpayers are going to want to know exactly how this money's spent. And if you narrow it down to just a road construction, street repair bond, may have a better chance of passing.
Well, I agree. And let's be clear. These are three separate bonds. They will all be voted on separately.
Okay.
So you could support a road bond, whereas you may or may not support another bond, or you could support all three, you know, objectively, wherever you stand on this issue. We did a year and a half ago pass the which I initiated and proposed, which was the Good Roads Initiative. Greenville over the past decade have only been averaging around spending $300,000 on upfitting our roads, which does not match the amount of money we're getting from PAL bill money from the state to get that done. And what the result is, if you repair it now, it may cost $10,000 to $100,000 to keep it upfit. But if it gets to failure, it costs $1 million a mile to repair. Well, guess what? After years of neglect, we have close to 100 miles in this city which are near the failure point, which Kevin Mulligan discovered, passed along to us last night. And also, you're right. You're correct. There needs to be very specific initiatives involved, especially with the roads. And a map was projected last night which showed the results of some diagnostics that were done third party on the city, and which shows the specific roads. And in order for me to support a bond, it has to have a time length. It also has to have specific items that we're talking about, and we have to hold their feet to the fire. And Terry's right. We actually passed $4 million last year to try to accelerate our road improvements, which is only the first step in the right direction, and I appreciate council at that time supporting that. But we have not made enough progress, and that's something we're really pushing on staff, and I encourage citizens to help us with that. We've got to keep that process moving. Weather has been a factor in that. We all know it's been a long fall and a long winter, but the plan is to move forward this spring. But we have to, when we say we're going to do something, it needs to get done, and that is no more critical than it is right now.
Mayor Alan Thomas in the studio. If you got a question, 561-8255, 561-8255. Is there what is the timeline? If the city, as I understand it, you're in the kind of discovery stage right now, trying to decide exactly what kind of a bond there would be. Sounds like maybe you're further down the road than I thought you were. But when will the council actually vote to do a bond referendum, and when would the bond take place? Would we be voting on this November?
Well, that's part of what we're looking at now. Your options are this. The action we took last night, there is a playbook for this. There's a playbook from 2004. Morrisville actually in the RTP just passed a roads and infrastructure bond, so we're looking at them as their process as well. There's a playbook. The first step is putting together an advisory committee. So every member of city council and myself will appoint 2 citizens to that board. I'm going to go ahead and appoint Henry, I guess, if he's got some free time.
If appointed, I will not serve.
He loves committees, by the way. I want you guys to know that.
Exactly.
But
I got enough committees.
So the first step is that. And then they're going to have to look at these 3 bonds, and that was my question last night. All right, you got to put time frames on this thing, or you get paralysis to analysis. We'll be committed to death until the end of the year if we aren't careful. We got to move on forward with this thing. But our goal is right now, I mean, we haven't changed direction, is to look if one or more of these bonds may be on the referendum in November. The next option is a year away from November, which would be November 2015, which I've been informed has never been done on a city election to have a bond put on a city election at the same time that city officials are running. That would be interesting for some folks.
Something tells me you guys are going to rush and get this on this November.
Well, I would. Hey, a couple of these bonds. And we had the folks that are big supporters of competitive swimming.
Yeah.
Now we're not going to be able to even rightfully look at some of their thoughts on a swimming and diving facility here. We can't do that before November. Maybe one bond on roads. Maybe we can do that this November because it's pretty cut and dry. It's professional. It's been studied. Maybe the other ones move on to a next date. I don't know. Right now we're working on that. This is something in progress. But let me tell you, this is a ticking item. At least in my opinion, the infrastructure, the other items with facilities, I mean, may need further study. But we're at a phase now where that group's being put together, and you guys elect us to make these decisions, and we need to go ahead and get on with it and not drag this out for what could be 3 years if this is not handled correctly. We could see folks that propose skipping the municipal election, and we're sitting here in 2016 talking about the same thing we're talking about now. That's not good government. When you see improvement that needs to be made, we need to get on with it.
561-8255, 561-TALK. If you got a question for Mayor Alan Thomas, 561-8255. Randy, good morning. You're on with the mayor.
Morning. One question. Dickinson and 9th Street, is that part of your plan to repave that with the road bond?
Dickinson is one of the items that was proposed by staff. There is an entire project that's being pushed, the back of the Imperial Warehouse area and all through that. That's being considered part of the uptown engagement and extension that kind of blends in with the whole 10th Street corridor. That is a key area that our staff is proposing a significant investment in that area. Also keep in mind.
By the way, I was just on 9th Street in Dickinson. It's awful.
Yep, I agree.
It's like a third world country over there.
It is. You've got some areas where you have a serpentine type approach to be able to get.
Yeah, you got to weave in and out. Randy, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I've been here since the early '80s, and I know there was a contest between the city and the state about who was responsible for Dickinson, but that road, besides that watershed project a couple of years ago, there has never been anything done on Dickinson Avenue, and I travel it every day.
Randy, you bring up a very good point that needs to be stated here as well. There is jurisdictional differences in the city. Greenville Boulevard, Memorial, actually all of Dickinson set the part that we're going to designate to try to go ahead and do some work on. Several streets throughout the city are actually maintained and managed and controlled through DOT, through their funding, and we don't have the right to really do a whole lot on that. Our approach is if we can get an engagement and an approval of a bond, we're going to make a big push with the state, with Henry's help, to try to get them to also improve our major state thoroughfares through this city. It is an economic development question. We have people that travel here from 8 or 9 or 10 counties around to go to work every day, and we need to make our entryways into our city and our ability to get to work to be something that's going to be inviting to create jobs here.
All right, Randy, thank you for that. 561-8255. If you got a question for Mayor Thomas, we've got about 6 minutes left. If you want to get in, 561-8255. Back to last night's surprise motion and vote to pass a tax increase. All we know is that it was for facilities maintenance.
Right.
What exactly is that tax increase for? And is that a done deal now? Was that vote last night a vote to include it into the budget, and then there will be another vote on the tax increase down the road, or is there? Yeah, I guess there's going to be a public hearing, is it not, before we get our taxes increased?
Well, 2 years ago we had a public hearing and one person showed up. So
Yeah.
I would encourage citizens to get engaged with your community if you want to see it, improve and see the proper investments being made. It's just shot across the bow, Henry, for a tax increase. It's not final. Nothing is final in this budget, until we vote in June when we finish up the budget. But what was directed to staff was to present a budget that would include the tax increase and the implications on facilities. There are some areas of our facilities, the Aquatics and Fitness Center and the Lucille Gorham Center, that have areas that are facilities that literally are substantial, again, that should have been maintained over the past 20 years on an incremental basis, but they weren't. So that's why the facilities piece was something that was being considered part of the bond. But once you have a tax increase, and this is something that Councilmember Smith brought up last month in our meeting, and that increase could be used for whatever is decided by staff at that time. And what this council passes, the next elected council are not held to that. So those are all the implications that are involved in these decisions.
So the facilities that are needed are what? You mentioned Lucille Gorham Intergenerational Center. You mentioned the Aquatics and Fitness Center. Is there something? I mean, when I hear maintenance of facilities, I thought we were talking more in the public works area. That's not what we're talking about.
There's a list that we had at our last meeting last month that 2 or 3 pages long of HVAC units, of upfits and things that need to be done that have been deferred for 8 or 9, 10. We have a facility that probably hadn't been touched since the Roosevelt administration in terms of some improvement, but but that's what we pay our taxes for. There's always been this discussion about fund balance. And we have made the decision as a council over years to stay near that 14% range, which we have stayed over that. But, there's also our duty to be able to, improve our infrastructure. Facilities maintenance has lagged a bit. That's something that's caught the attention of the current staff. And there is a big push to be able to address those facilities across the board, Henry.
All right, we're going back to the phones. What's that again, Coach? All right, 561-8255. If you want to get in, a few minutes left with Mayor Alan Thomas here live in the studio. And good morning. You're on with Mayor Thomas.
Good morning. Appreciate you taking the call. Great opportunity. My concern is the personal appearance of Greenville in general. I don't feel like the littering is just out of control in a lot of areas. And I think we just need to tidy up. And the street signs, crooked. I'm wondering. I'm beginning to think everybody that puts them up thinks they're straight.
We have to add Ann to the inspections department. We need you to come on board, Ann.
I'll say, Ann, you brought up something I wasn't expecting. I didn't know we were going to talk about crooked signs. I hadn't noticed those.
Well, I'm going to tell you, the one at corner of Starbucks, 10th and Evans, has been crooked for 3 or 4 years.
10th and Evans.
All right, Ann, let's write that one down.
I'd appreciate some help on the litter. It just really concerns me, and the cigarette butts around all the traffic.
That drives me crazy too, Ann. When I'm behind a car and they throw a McDonald's bag out the window, I want to do something stupid.
I tell you, in Regency last week, I love Regency, and it's the most wonderful road in the whole area.
Yeah.
But last
Well, it's
week
the
I
newest
rode down.
road in the whole area.
Yeah, oh great. Yeah, it took forever to get it, didn't it? But riding down through there last week, there was trash all on both sides, and it's very, very bad looking for us. We don't look that good.
It is, and the daily upkeep, and Henry, we talk about. I remember that. Thank you very much, Ann.
Thank you, Ann.
I remember that old commercial of the poor Indian looking at the stream and crying, and I think he would be sobbing at some of our areas. Yeah. And again, manpower and hours. I mean, it's something that we had to continue to work with, and the pure volume of people coming through the community. I think we can always do a better job, and we don't need to accept anything in terms of current standard. But if I can't get you up and down your road, I can't get you to work. I can't get you home. And to me, that is our main goal working on. But in terms of the look and feel of the city, the wayfinding approach, I've heard so many people that have come here and visited talking about tying all the different areas of the community together. They said, it puts us on par with some of the better communities they've been in. But the daily maintenance is definitely something that we're working on. Kevin Mulligan is new this year, and that's something that he's actually taken note of. And I think we're going to have more focus.
All right, we're almost out of time. We'll try to work in one more call. JT, you're on with the mayor, but you got to be quick. Go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, how we doing on 5th Street? I saw another man laying in the road the other day where he had a wreck and his car split that cement thing. He was thinking it was 3-lane instead of 2. And, it goes from 4-lane to 2 right there, that little bridge. And I was just wondering how things were moving on that.
Mr. J.T. Williams, I appreciate you calling.
Yes.
Good to hear from you, JT.
Thank you, JT. We do have an issue over by the St. Peter's, St. Peter's, the Catholic school over there across from the park on 5th, that end,
right.
That we're working on addressing. There's a narrow bridge. Bridges are very expensive, and what he's bringing up is there needs to be a sidewalk, and a sidewalk improvement in that area would be a part of this bond. That's one of the items that they've kicked the can on for decades, that it is a dangerous little choke point there on where 5th comes into 10th that we need to address. And JT, this is a part of our plans with this bond.
All right, Mr. Mayor, we got like a minute here. I guess the one thing that comes to mind, and we're going to start to hear this, is with the parking deck, facilities maintenance, streets, all the things. Are you going to try to do too much at one time here? Is that one of the concerns?
Well, here's your question. So much has been built up over time. that at some point you have to look at what you need to do. If the capacity wasn't there, if our debt wasn't at the lowest that it's been in 20 years, if rates weren't so low, these things probably wouldn't be on the table. But they are. It's more than manageable to keep us beyond the fund balance that we have in place. And you have to make a decision as well in Greenville if you want to continue to stagnate and be a city that supports 40,000 people or one that's going to have 100,000 people. You got to make that decision. Are we planning for 1980 or are we planning for 2020? And guess what? The real world is what's coming down the path. And I want my kids to have a safe and a well-kept place that's going to create jobs and opportunity for them. So this is well within that range, and we have to show some fortitude here and vision if we're going to continue. Look at Uptown. You see the progress across Uptown. We got to get going.
Mayor, good to see you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Nice to have you in here this morning. Mayor Alan Thomas, our guest, and we appreciate the mayor. Have to do this again. That was good.
I've been waiting for him to ask the mayor.
Ask the mayor. That's it.